Coliseum Monday, June the 4th. Come on in, Dr. David Schultz, if you would, please. Notwithstanding the big match between the Iron Sheik and Sergeant Slaughter, you've got a crack at the former Marine prior to that out at the Cape Cod Coliseum.
You know, I'd give anything in the world to get my hands on him before the Sheik got his hands on him.
You're going to do it.
Because after the Sheik gets his hands on you, boy, or after I get my hands on you, ain't nobody going to want you anymore. We're going to make mincemeat out of you, boy. We're going to make dog meat out of you. We're going to beat you up so bad, and you're talking about combat boots in Vietnam. I never seen a soldier in my life while I was in Vietnam wear steel-toed combat boots, you idiot. It rains a lot there. You're a goof. You ain't got everything upstairs. But Cape Cod, wherever that is, I'll get there.
You know, I've got a good friend of mine who lives out there.
I don't care if your whole family lives there. I don't care if your mama lives there. I don't care if your daddy and your mama lives there together. I don't care if your mama lives with another man there. I want Sergeant Slaughter there. And I don't care if you bring your mama with you, Sergeant Slaughter. I'll slap her like a dog. And I don't care if you bring your daddy. I'll beat him like a dog. Now, see, I just don't care. You know what I mean?
I believe there's an attitude
bring your
problem
family
there,
with you.
yes.
I believe you got the problem.
I don't have
You look like you got a problem. You're getting thin on the head. You're ugly. I don't like you. You got a bad, manners. You and Sarge might be kin. You both might be from Cape Cod. So just bring the whole family and line them up, because I'd like to slap about 15 or 20 of them plumb silly after I get through with you, Sergeant Slaughter.
Thank you very much, Dr. David Schultz, outspoken.
You're welcome.
Big date coming up at the Coliseum on Monday, June 4th. You won't want to miss it.
Welcome back to Retro Wrestling News Presents. I'm your host, Cena, and with me, as always, is Luke Martin. How you doing tonight, Luke?
I'm doing wonderful. I found Pabst Blue Ribbon in glass bottles.
Oh.
I haven't seen that in a while.
So on this episode, we're going to take a look at Fire Pro Wrestling D for the Sega Dreamcast. Now, Fire Pro Wrestling D was released on March 6, 2001 for the Sega Dreamcast. It was developed by Spike and Human Entertainment, or Human, who recently changed to Spike. This game is interesting because it is an early example of a video game that had downloadable content. So we're able to download wrestlers from the web browser. Fire Pro Wrestling D is the only Fire Pro game that allows users to exchange creator wrestlers data through the Dreamcast web browser at the time. What makes this game unique is that this game would allow players to download new moves using the game's network mode. Again, this is an early example of downloadable content for a home console. This is back in 2001. Again, the graphics on this game, top notch. Again, everything you expect from a Fire Pro game. This, at the time, was the best Fire Pro game released. Now, in my opinion, Fire Pro Returns probably outclassed a little bit. But this game is definitely better than Premium X, which was the go-to game for an extended period of time. So I'll quickly go through the roster because it is quite large. We have Abdul the Butcher, Aja Khan, Akira Hokuto, Akira Maeda, Alexander Altuca, Andy Hug, Antonio Inoki, The Big Show, Big Goldberg, Bill Goldberg, Bret Hart, Sema, Curryman, Dean Malenko, Don Fry, Dynamite Kid, Eddie Guerrero, Tenru, Baba, Grand Nyawa, Great Muda, Hayabusa, Hulk Hogan, Igor Vlachoshin, which is, I'm assuming it's Russian, because I can't pronounce it, Yun Akiyama, Kane, Karl Gotch, Sakuraba, Keijimoto, Kenta Kobashi, Kurt Angle, Luthez, Jushin Thunder Liger, Chono, Masato Tanaka, Mick Foley, Mil Mascaras, Masawa, Masajuga, Takada, Ric Flair, Ricky Dozon, Rob Van Dam, The Rock, Royce Gracie, Sabu, Kojima, Hashimoto, Stan Hansen, Steve Austin, Steve Williams, Super Delphin, Taiyo Kei, The Great Sasuke, Tiger Mask 4, Kawada, Triple H, Ultimo Dragon, Undertaker, and Vince McMahon makes an appearance in Fire Pro Wrestling D.
How did they get all those licensed characters in one game?
Because it's Japan and they don't give a shit.
Were
Fuck
they actually
copyrights.
named?
No, but you have to go in and edit the names.
That's right.
Yeah, because it's it's just like all the other Japanese games that came out at the time. Like, nope, we don't care. And it's funny, like the American wrestlers I understand, but for them to be able to get away with the Japanese wrestlers is amazing. Again, the controls are typical Fire Pro controls, easy to learn, hard to master. Again, if you have two guys who are really good at this game, matches can last literally forever. If you're not used to the Fire Pro controls, you have to get used to them pretty quick because they are different than any other iteration of wrestling games, basically. The big thing being is that you don't press a button to lock up, you get close to a wrestler, and then it's all tabbing based at that point. So the wrestlers will automatically lock up, and whoever has better timing will win the grapple, and then you go into a maneuver. The way it progresses through a match is that early on in the match, you can only use light grapples. As your opponent takes more damage, then you can move on to medium grapples and heavy grapples. But if you try a heavy grapple too early in the game, it will automatically get reversed. So matches actually flow really naturally. So that's an amazing, amazing innovation by Fire Pro.
There's also a shit ton of moves that you can customize.
Yeah, the move list is like it's insane, innovative. Those moves would be innovative for a game in 2018. And 2001, it was blowing people's mind.
Yeah,
now,
the amount of customization is a lot.
It's insane. It's completely insane. Again, that is a staple of Fire Pro. We see it now with the new Fire Pro World game that came out. That will be releasing for PS4 pretty soon. So, excited for that. Although, probably the PC version is probably better because you probably get unlimited save slots. So, you can have everyone in the history of wrestling.
PC's always better anyway.
Yeah. Yes, I know. PC Master Race over here.
That's right.
Now, I do have a personal story about this game. When this game was released, and in 2001, I had to find out my job, who was big into wrestling and big into video games, and he had gotten this game, and he was trying to explain to me what this game was, doing a poor job at it because I just didn't believe him. So he was telling me how you could be any wrestler in the world ever. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, you want to have Hulk Hogan versus Steve Austin? Both Hulk Hogan and Steve Austin in this game. And I'm like, bullshit, you're a fucking liar. Like, that's impossible. It's like, no, dude. It's from Japan. I'm like, what the fuck does that mean? Not knowing what that meant. So I ended up going over to his house one day after work, and he showed me this game. I'm like, holy shit, you were telling the fucking truth. I mean, it wasn't 3D graphics. Again, I'm playing, I'm coming off of playing Venge and No Mercy. I'm like, oh, okay. But once you start playing the game, and the game playing so addictive, I fell in love with it at that point. So that's my personal story where, this kid, I guess I was 19 at the time. Like, you're lying. There's no way you can have Abdul the Butcher versus Kurt Angle. It's not gonna happen. Again, what's interesting about this game, it was released for the Dreamcast, and the Dreamcast itself is a riddle wrapped in a what's it called? A conundrum. The Dreamcast itself is interesting to me because, in my opinion, the fact that we're not playing Dreamcast 5 right now, to me, is completely ridiculous. Like, Dreamcast was so ahead of the curve when it came out in 1999 that it should have probably won that generation's console war because it had, I don't know, a year and a half in the marketplace by itself. To me, that's completely ridiculous. And the fact that it didn't win that console, war in that generation is insane to me. I understand the drawbacks of the Dreamcast. It didn't have DVD capability like the PlayStation 2, the Xbox. But it had a fucking modem in it. You could play online. It had a browser, which is insane. Like, that's insane in 1999.
I just remember playing it, and it was the first game where you could see the name on the football. So it said, Wilson on the side.
That's awesome.
And that was, mind-blowing. Like, it was so... I just don't know what Sega... they didn't seem...
What happened? Sega, what happened? I don't understand. We know what happened. And it goes back to my experience with the Sega CD. I got a Sega CD when it came out, and that shit was stupid expensive. I think it was $3.99 when I got it. And this is $1993. So that's ridiculous, right? I got it for my birthday. And I begged my parents for it, begged my dad for it. I'm like, I need to have this, I need to have this. It was so cool. I looked at the commercials. I got it home, I set it up, I pop in a game, and just the amount of regret that went through my body as, I don't know, an 11-year-old or a 10-year-old was ridiculous. I was almost in tears because I quickly realized that the Sega CD fucking sucked. Now you say, oh, the games. Well, the games I got initially with the Sega CD, obviously it came with a bunch of weird games. Like, it came with a encyclopedia. It came with a Sherlock Holmes games that was weird. I didn't understand how to play it. And, like, it had all these, like, weird titles that you would come to find out, at least I would, like, those are early PC games that they had. It's like CD-ROM PC games that were garbage. It came with it came packed in with the system. In addition to that, I had got Night Trap, and I couldn't figure out how to fucking play the game. Like, what the fuck was that? Again, I'm pretty young. I didn't understand about the colors, and you gotta make sure your timing is right. And you actually have to play that game like 5 or 6 times through to understand it, and to get the timing right for it. And then I had a Prize Fighter. That game was shitty. It had all these fucking motion video games, these games were awful. I had thought that it was gonna be a Sega Genesis, just like overpowered. Not all these fucking motion video games.
But didn't you get to make a video for Marky Mark and the Funky
You
Bunch?
did, and Criss Cross.
So
And I rented those, and those were awful too. Also rented Scottie Pippen's basketball, which was the shit. It had good games, but it just wasn't enough. It had the best quarterfinal fight for it. It had a wrestling game that was fantastic for it. It had a lot of the Sonic game is amazing for the Sega CD, but it just wasn't enough. The full motion video genre had taken over, and it was I thought there was going to be much better Sega Genesis games. So we go through the Sega CD. Fucking sad as shit. Right? I still have my Sega CD. I have one game for it, which is Third World War, which actually is a really cool game. But moving on from that, we get into the 32X, and because Virtual Fighter, right? Virtual Fighter, holy shit! We're thinking arcade perfect porter Virtual Fighter, and this is gonna be fucking sweet. And all we gotta do is add this another piece to my Sega Genesis, and then you quickly realize that the 32X also sucks. So at that point in my life, I'm like, screw that. Nintendo's not coming out with another console. I'm super disappointed with the Genesis. I'm going to try this thing called a PlayStation. And I had a game that came with it. The first game I got with the PlayStation was Tekken. And I was like, okay, I'm in. It had Tekken, it had Gran Turismo, and then later on it had Final Fantasy VII. And by that time, fuck everything else, I'll roll the PlayStation. So when the Saturn came out, I didn't give a fuck about no Saturn. Fuck a Saturn. Although Saturn had good games, their library is small. Those games for the Saturn, although a lot of them are pretty good, are super expensive. So by the time the Dreamcast comes out, N64 already came out. And if you were like me, and like most other consumers at the time, you were like, fuck a Dreamcast. Fuck Sega. You burned me twice. You had the Saturn and it was only out for like a year. I don't know what the fuck you're doing. You don't know what you're doing. Fuck a Sonic. I don't give a shit. So most people skipped on the Dreamcast to get the new PlayStation 2 that was coming out later on. We didn't even know about no Xbox. And we'll get into that in a second. We didn't know about no Xbox. We're like, alright, PlayStation 1 was good. PlayStation 2 is going to be better. It has DVD capability, which the Dreamcast did not. It didn't have a modem. You had to buy that separately later on, but what the fuck did we know about online play in 1999? Not a whole lot. For fuck's sake. Unfortunately, the problem is that the Dreamcast is actually a really good console. And I think a lot of people missed out on it. I think now people are going back and playing the Dreamcast and oh, this is fucking awesome. Why didn't we get this at the time? And it was just because consumer confidence was way down in Sega. I do think if they had a DVD capability on it, it would have helped. I also think if they didn't lose EA, that would have helped. But all that stuff kind of just propelled everyone into Sony because don't forget that Nintendo in the meantime, had lost the Final Fantasy series. That went to Sony. Sega had lost EA. They went with Sony. So it was the perfect storm for PlayStation to become a player. Like they shouldn't even enter the console market. Like if Nintendo had released that Nintendo PlayStation, like they were supposed to, and not try to fuck Sony, the landscape of video games would be completely different, right? It probably still would have been Nintendo and Sega at this point.
Well, Sega screwed the poop. I mean, did you ever have Sega TV? Do you remember that?
The Sega channel?
Yeah.
Yes, I did have the Sega channel. You know what sucked about that? You couldn't save shit. So, like, there's a Mega Man game that was exclusive for the Sega channel, and it's fucking long as hell. You know, you think you could save it, right? But the moment you turn off the console, like, it was all gone. Sega was super innovative. They were streaming games like in 1994.
Yeah.
That's something that's not even common practice today. Yeah.
So I don't understand. Like it just seems like Sega had a lot of good ideas, but nobody to like focus those ideas into like an actual marketing thing. So if you'd like taken the Sega channel and added it to the Dreamcast with backwards compatibility, included a DVD in the Dreamcast, and hadn't released 2 other systems in conjunction with the Sega Genesis, because that was the biggest problem. It's like they released Sega CD with the Sega Genesis.
It was so fucked up. It was that the Sega CD was such a piece of shit, and it was a good idea because Nintendo was like, "We're gonna do it too," but they got cold feet and backed out the last minute. But they figured out how to get more power into their games by having the FX chip and putting that in cartridges. Where Sega needed all these fucking life support systems to get more fucking power out of the console.
And that was the big problem too. Is like instead of taking the time to make a better system, they just kept releasing systems like back to back to back, or with the CD. Yeah, where it'd be like, oh, this Sega, like they should, if they just they could have just waited and just made the Sega like 32X add-on, and then
the original idea was to have the Sega Neptune, which was a 32X that was by itself.
Yeah,
but
I don't know.
They were successful with the Genesis because, let's be honest, they weren't that successful with the Master System, and the SG-1000 not successful at all. So the 2 consoles before that, not so good. So when they got this Genesis and they had a hit on their hand, they didn't know what to do with it. Like, we're so excited, we have a hit. And I would say the Genesis was badass because they would come out with arcade games. Like I got in the Genesis, and the game that came with it was fucking Altered Beast. And you played fucking Altered Beast, and it was dark. The demographic had changed. It was going after an older audience. So if you had outgrown the Nintendo, the Sega Genesis was for you, and they let it all slip away. Plus Sega Genesis, when they fucking launched, they had all these celebrities fucking sign on with them. So you had Timeless Order's baseball, you had Pat Riley's basketball, you had Buster Douglas' boxing, you had Michael Jackson's Moonwalker, you had Joe Montana's football.
Yeah.
Christ. The first Madden on a home console, I'm pretty sure that was a Sega Genesis.
So too.
Because there was no Madden on fucking Nintendo, I'll tell you that much.
I just don't like. I think that the biggest problem that Sega had, and the reason the Dreamcast failed, is because they were just too reactionary to the market. So it's like anytime any other company like talked about trying to do something, Sega just tried to like rush it to the market.
Yeah.
So like somebody mentioned CDs, so they tried to rush. They tried to beat everybody to the market with shit, but it was always like half-assed. Like they were so worried that they were going to fall behind. It's like they didn't have confidence in their own, like the people to continue to stay with the Sega brand, whereas Nintendo had confidence in their brand.
They had so much confidence that they skipped the 32-bit generation completely. So they went from the Super Nintendo to the N64.
Yeah,
so they went from 16-bit to 64.
I think that if Sega had just waited and just come out with like the Sega Saturn, it would have been better than...
If they would have had a natural progression from the Genesis to the Saturn to the Dreamcast, that would have... They're probably still making consoles to this day.
Yeah, so they definitely screwed the pooch on that. And then they
plus,
lost.
I don't think they protected their first party licenses all them other than Sonic, because was there even a Streets of Rage game for Saturn or Dreamcast? Nope.
I like
It was
Streets of
dope as fuck.
They really messed up because at least Nintendo was smart enough to like, and they've always done this. They have always stuck, like they are very innovative about making games for their systems. You can't get a Mario game on any system but a Nintendo system, or a Zelda game, or fucking Pilot Wings. Like I remember for 64 Pilot.
Yeah.
That shit was cool.
I mean, other than the time they put it on, was the Philips console they had at one point. They had Mario games on that, and that failed.
Yeah, but so they just did. They know what people want. Even like, I mean, and think about it. Like Nintendo's. The funny thing about Sega is they had Sonic, who was kind of like obviously their Mario, but I mean PlayStation doesn't really have that. So they had
it's God of War now, but before that it was probably Crash Bandicoot.
Yeah, I would say Crash Bandicoot, but they haven't. So I mean, Nintendo's really the only company that continue on, but Sega was right behind them. So, but Sega just never went out and tried. I don't know. It just didn't seem like they had a good focus. Like Nintendo, and PlayStation, like they catered, like Konami, for instance. Like Konami games were on Super Nintendo, and then they came out on PlayStation, never on Sega. Or it just seemed like Sega just didn't have any clue about what they were doing, and they just got lucky with the system that they had.
That's what it seemed like. I mean, there were always a player in the arcades. Right, so they had the arcade money coming in. They dropped the ball with the Master System. We know that. Yeah, they hit a home run with with the Genesis. And, they made a couple of big mistakes, post-Genesis. And then to the fact that they had Microsoft come in and they literally taught Microsoft how to build a console. And then a year later, Microsoft comes out with Xbox. For fuck's sake.
Which was super late to the market, too. I just don't think people
underestimate the Xbox, first of all, because that shit is customizable as fuck. The first one, you can take out the fucking hard drive for it. Like, I have an Xbox, and it's a mini computer. It's a PC, that's what it is.
I just don't think people, and I would say even today, like I don't think people understand how important it is to have a console exclusive games. It's like if you look at PlayStation, their console exclusive games are really kind of drives the system. Like God of War, or Resident Evil, or whatever.
Street Fighter. That's a big deal to get in that Street Fighter.
Or look at Nintendo. The only reason Nintendo still exists is because of their shit. Yeah, like that's it.
Because everyone's gonna buy the new Mario game regardless of where it comes out. Metroid, they're gonna get. All these consoles, all their first party games, they took a lot of care of their first party titles. Well, Sega, other than Sonic, didn't take care of their first party IPs. They just didn't.
Well, I mean, they had like Phantasy Star Online.
Phantasy Star was dope as hell too.
Right. It's just hard to understand how they fucked, because they had so much shit that became so like people just loved. They just like, I just remember like it didn't seem like they were behind the Dreamcast at all.
No.
Like they didn't really like push it very hard. I don't really remember seeing any like big push for them to sell it, and like they never really knew much about it. Like it kind of went in and was there, but like, no one really talked about it, and then it just disappeared.
I think what it was too is the fact that the console itself is that game is super. The console is super easy to pirate. Like you can literally, right now, if I really want to, I can download the ROM off the internet, put in a blank CD, burn it to the CD, and then put it to the Dreamcast, and it'll work, no problem. No mod chips, no nothing. Just pop it right in there. You'll get no shit.
Well, I think too the biggest thing is that I'm sure they burned retailers too, because of, they buy. Let's say you a retailer and you stock Sega CD and that tanks. You're like, all right, whatever. Then they throw in this 32X shit and that tanks, and then they throw in the Saturn and that tanks. At this point, you're not going to be pushing these Dreamcasts or whatever very hard, because you're not going to buy a big stock of them, and you're more worried about selling the PlayStation and all this new shit, and not this thing that you already don't have confidence in. So yeah, I would say the biggest thing is they definitely ruined the confidence. I think consoles are kind of coming to an end now, just because.
I think we both agree on that.
Yeah, but I mean, if you look at what they're doing now, where they're they're releasing like an Xbox One S and like a PlayStation, whatever the fuck. Like it looks stupid. They look dumb because usually when you get a system, like I don't want to have to buy a new system in 2 years.
Yeah.
Like that's just stupid.
Like it should last 6 to 7 years.
Right. So you're either not building a console with enough power to sustain me,
or the technology is increasing at a rapid pace that you can't keep up anymore.
Well, the thing is it's just a cost thing. So it takes however long to develop that, and then you have to write like OS and and they lose money on every system they sell. And that's the thing with Sony too, is like they just lose money. Like every time they sell a PlayStation, it's a loss. And they make up for it in other ways through the PlayStation itself. But I mean, like that's why like a fucking Xbox controller is like $50, because it's like they're basically selling you a computer for half of what the computer would cost with half the functionality. You're buying a nice computer, but you can only do so many things on it. When you could just buy a normal computer, you plug it into your fucking TV, you do everything that you wanted to do on that bitch on the Xbox. And now, because of the loss of exclusivity, you're really not. I mean, other than
remember back in the day, like games would take so long to come out on the PC that would be ridiculous. But now they're launching basically around the same time now, or like it might be a month difference when they're launching on the PC.
Well, that's why it was so crazy that they launched like the WWE game like 3 weeks before it came out. They're like, oh hey, by the way, we're releasing this on Steam. Well, that would have been good to know, because I wouldn't have bought it on Xbox if you would have told me that it was going to get released on Steam. But the thing is, and the ports would be god awful. But now they're not. Like they're the exact same. It's just the market has fluctuated again. But you know, there's other things that go into that, because with mods and Steam and all that shit, it's changed the ballgame. Because it used to be harder for you to get PC games to market and to a customer and targeted, whereas now it's you just fucking throw it up on Steam at any time and continue to buy it ad nauseum, and you don't have to do it. You don't have to provide servers for it, but you don't have to provide it's no box, no
you don't need hardware.
Yeah, nothing. It's all.
You're not losing money on hardware.
Because even now, I mean, they took like booklets out of games.
Yeah, they're stripping it down.
I had the Mass Effect thing. It's got like a fucking book in it. I'm like, I don't know what to do with this. Yeah, like, no, that's weird. But yeah, they have. It's pretty crazy how much they.
So guys, we're gonna deep dive into consoles and what have you on our future episodes. We'll definitely want to take more time out to talk about the Saturn, the PlayStation 1, Sega CD, Master System, Xbox 360, and later episodes. So be on the lookout for those. But in terms of Fire Pro Wrestling V, fantastic wrestling game. Can't recommend it enough. It's a must-have. You can get a translated version pretty easily, or you can get the original Japanese version. I have both. Again, pretty easily. No issues there. It's a pretty cheap game to import, so no issues there. And then even the Dreamcast itself is not super expensive. So I know a lot of people are getting back into Dreamcast now because it's like going back and playing a console that you never played before. And so it's like it's playing retro games, but for the first time. So that's pretty in vogue now. So be on the lookout for those prices on the on both the Saturn and the Dreamcast games to rise. So it'd be interesting to collect those. I would say time is of the essence, and you may want to step back now. So, all right, guys. So we are officially out of time. So for Luke Martin, I'm Juan.